One of the biggest reasons Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert managed to coexist last season was due to Towns' ability to stretch the floor, creating much-needed spacing in the Timberwolves' offense. Towns is perhaps the best shooting big man in the league, hitting 41.6% from beyond the arc last season. His perimeter threat allowed Gobert to operate in the paint, where he excels as a dominant rebounder and rim protector, while still keeping defenses honest. The pairing helped the Timberwolves maintain an offensive flow, especially when they leaned on Nas Reed for spacing off the bench, who shot an impressive 41% from three. Now, the dynamic changes significantly with Julius Randle stepping in for Towns. Randle's game is much more reliant on isolation plays and mid-range jumpers. Last season, Randle struggled to find consistency from deep, shooting 31% from three. This presents a potential challenge, as Randle won't command the same defensive respect from beyond the arc, potentially clogging the paint for Gobert and limiting his effectiveness. The good news is that Randle is a versatile scorer who can punish mismatches in the post and is excellent at drawing fouls. His ability to bully smaller defenders could help the Timberwolves diversify their offensive sets, but the key will be balancing that with the need to maintain floor spacing. If Randle can improve his shooting, or if the Timberwolves can stagger his minutes with Gobert to avoid congestion in the paint, there's potential for the offense to thrive. Chris Finch has a challenge on his hands. The Wolves' offense under Finch has been predicated on fast-paced ball movement and spreading the floor, which Randle's style may not fit perfectly into. To make it work, the team will have to rely more on their other shooters such as Edwards and DiVincenzo to keep defenses from collapsing on Randle and Gobert. The Wolves also have a valuable weapon in Nas Reed, whose shooting from the bench could open up more space if Randle struggles to find his range. With a revamped lineup, the Timberwolves' depth might be the key to managing these spacing issues. While Randle may not be the perfect fit in terms of shooting, his offensive versatility offers new dimensions that Finch could exploit in the right system. The decision to trade Towns to the Knicks was about more than just getting Julius Randle in return. The Timberwolves were essentially betting on their young core, especially Nas Reed and Jaden McDaniels, who have shown tremendous potential but were financially difficult to retain with Towns' massive contract. With Towns set to make nearly $50 million a year, keeping him mid potentially losing Reed, who shot 41.4% from three and earned Sixth Man of the Year last season. Since Towns is gone, Reed has a real chance to step into a bigger role. His performance in the 2024 playoffs, where he hit a Timberwolves playoff record 7 threes in a single game, showed that he can be more than just a backup big. In contrast, Towns struggled at times with foul trouble, and Reed's ability to stretch the floor while providing rim protection makes him a perfect fit for Chris Finch's system. This brings us to the dilemma with Randle. If the Wolves commit to Reed as their starting power forward alongside Gobert, Randle would naturally become the sixth man, a role that seems off for someone making $29 million. Randle averaged 24, 9, and 5 last season before an injury, but his 31% shooting from deep complicates his fit in a team that needs spacing. If Randle is relegated to the bench, it raises questions about the value of this trade. Swapping Towns for a player who might not even start, and a role player like DiVincenzo feels like a downgrade on paper. DiVincenzo's elite 40% three-point shooting certainly helps, and the Wolves are betting that Reed's continued development, paired with Randle's offensive punch off the bench, will make this trade worthwhile. But paying Randle almost $30 million to come off the bench seems like a steep price. If Reed can sustain his strong play and Gobert continues to dominate defensively, it might make more sense for Randle to be the primary scorer for the second unit. Yet, given the cost and the high expectations from the trade, it could feel like a letdown if Randle isn't a core starter, leading some to view this as an underwhelming return for Towns. Randle's playstyle is predicated on isolation in the mid-post and elbow, where he thrives at bullying defenders, either finishing at the rim or kicking out to shooters. The problem arises with Gobert clogging the paint. Gobert's lack of offensive versatility outside the paint could make it difficult for Randle to totally operate in his favorite spots. Randle was great at scoring, rebounding, and playmaking before his shoulder injury, but his lack of three-point efficiency makes him less ideal for spreading the floor. A potential solution is staggering Randle and Gobert's minutes, allowing Randle to play with floor spacers like Nas Reed. This would open up driving lanes and give Randle more room to work in isolation. Jaden McDaniels, another key piece of the starting five, can help by spacing the floor and being a secondary playmaker in these lineups if he shows an improvement of his outside shot. Given Randle's limitations as a shooter, the Timberwolves may need to lean heavily on the pick and roll. Randle is a strong screener, and pairing him in two-man actions with Mike Conley or Anthony Edwards could create opportunities for him to dive to the rim or pop out for mid-range shots. Conley's ability to manipulate defenses with his experience in the pick and roll will be crucial in creating easier shots for Randle, especially if Gobert is on the floor clogging the paint. Edwards will likely take over much of the offense. The team could run more Edwards-Randle pick and rolls, allowing Edwards to attack downhill while Randle acts as a safety valve for post-ups or mid-range jumpers. The Wolves need to find the balance between running actions for Edwards and still giving Randle enough isolation touches to stay engaged. If the Wolves want to maximize Randle's effectiveness, they'll need to increase their three-point attempts. DiVincenzo shot 40% from three on high volume and will be key in providing the spacing necessary for both Randle and Gobert. Without Towns, who provided elite spacing at the center position, the Wolves must now rely on players like DiVincenzo, McDaniels, and even Reed to hit threes consistently. This shift in offensive philosophy will allow them to keep defenses from collapsing on Randle and Gobert in the paint. To adjust to having Randle instead of Towns, the Timberwolves might explore more small ball lineups with Randle at the center position. This will allow them to maintain spacing without sacrificing too much size, as Randle is a strong rebounder and can hold his own in the post. With Randle at the 5, the Wolves can surround him with shooters and play a faster, more up-tempo style that suits both Edwards and Conley. The Timberwolves will need to fine-tune their offensive system to get the best out of Randle while keeping their defense strong. The challenge, however, will be balancing offense and defense. While Gobert locks down the paint, his offensive limitations may force the Wolves into predictable sets. This is where DiVincenzo's shooting and McDaniels' development as a scorer will need to come into play to complement Randle and Edwards. In terms of overall expectations, the Timberwolves should remain a playoff contender. Their depth is improved, and the combination of Edwards' rise to stardom, Reed's expanded role, and Gobert's defensive presence gives them a solid foundation. Still, their ceiling depends largely on how well Randle fits within their system. At best, this team could return to the Western Conference Finals or beyond if Randle meshes well with Edwards and they can figure out the spacing issues. At worst, they could struggle with offensive stagnation, and the lack of consistent outside shooting from their bigs could lead to spacing problems that hurt their efficiency. Overall, the Timberwolves should still be considered a playoff team, but their true potential will hinge on how quickly they can adapt to this new iteration of their roster.